Boa tarde. Boa tarde. Gostaria que nós dessemos início. Not working? It is working. Ok. Então, boa tarde. Eu gostaria que nós dessemos o início. Eu sou Paulo Nussenzveig, Pró-Reitor de Pesquisa e Inovação da Universidade de São Paulo. Antes de tudo, professor do Instituto de Física. E como nós temos uma convidada especial hoje que vai fazer uma apresentação em inglês, eu vou falar um pouco para vocês em inglês. Então, aquilo que motiva esse nosso trabalho. So, good afternoon. It is with great pleasure that we begin this university lecture, USP Lecture. It is within the framework of the Cátedra Erney Plessmann de Camargo, and the holder of the chair is Luis Moreno Ocampo, who I will mention a little further. The whole project with Luis Moreno Ocampo started from our outlook here at the university on innovation, on the responsibilities of the university with regards to innovation. Our definition of innovation is very close to the one that we find in institutions such as MIT, taking ideas from inception to impact, no matter in what field of knowledge. In particular, given what we've seen in terms of global order, world institutions, democracy throughout the world, we understand, we have the clear notion that universities have a responsibility to step up and to uphold values that are essentially universal in terms of well-being in general. And since its inception, the University of São Paulo is devoted to promoting welfare in the city and the state of São Paulo, but with an international, with a global outlook. So we see ourselves as a global thinking university, devoted to the state of São Paulo, to the population of the state of São Paulo that pays essentially for our existence through taxes, but not just looking at our own self-interest, but looking at a broader picture and how we are part of that broader picture. One of the strengths that we have here at the university in order to do this is an ability that mostly is seen by people from outside the university, because from inside sometimes we're not that aware of it, is our ability for interdisciplinary work, interdisciplinary research. And it's interesting because in the position that I have as Provost for Research and Innovation, I had a notion of an average from the university where I would say, well, within the institute that I belong to, I don't see that much of interdisciplinary teaching or activities. So on average, maybe we're not as good as we should be, but we stand out for our ability to bring people, specialists, from different subjects to talk together and to address problems that can only be solved, only be tackled from an interdisciplinary perspective, bringing together knowledge from different disciplines. In particular, we have people at the Physics Institute who apply methods from physics to investigate social problems. So again, as a physicist, and I confess to being a physicist. I'm in the presence of, judges, so I openly confess to be a physicist. One of our characteristics is we're considered arrogant. We think we know everything, and we think that we have a superior way of thinking, and there's no problem that is too hard for us to tackle. That is true. But we understand that we cannot do it alone. Some of us understand we cannot do it alone. Not all of us, some of us. And so, almost by chance, I was able to get in touch with Luis Moreno Ocampo and started talking about how our university has this view of innovation which is broad, which is not just restricted to technological, economic innovation, but making impact in a broader sense. And invited Luis to come just for a talk at the university. And he was like, wait a minute, you're a physicist and you're thinking about these things, about, you know, how do I say this, threats, existential threats to humanity. How can a physicist be thinking about these things? As I said, we're arrogant. And Luis, you know, very nicely put me in my place and said, well, if you're that arrogant, you know, we should do something about it. We should work together and not just have me come over for a talk. We meet, we chat, and then that's it. And so that was the origin of him giving us the privilege of coming to the University of São Paulo for a project on innovation in global order, meaning we want to understand, we want to be able to have from first principles description of what's going on and eventually find methods to steer global order to make impact, which is the idea of innovation. We hope that the new ideas that are being generated in this context, and fortunately it's evolving quite a lot, that these new ideas will help us shape, from a university perspective, take an active part in shaping global order. Obviously we won't be able to do this alone, and Luis has many contacts throughout the world. So one of the things that as physicists we realize is that in order to model something, in order to be able to explain something, we need information. And we're terrible in terms, as physicists, to gather the relevant information and to know what is relevant in the information. And Luis has a lot of contacts, and he's connecting us with a lot of people, one of whom we will have the privilege of listening to today. I don't want to take too much more of your time because you're not here to listen to me. So I'm going to ask Luis to come here and introduce our speaker, Judge Gassia Apkarian. Just as an idea of how we're bringing Brazilian institutions to play a role in this whole project is under the umbrella of the Research and Innovation Office of the University of São Paulo, but we have partnerships with the Institute for Advanced Studies, with the Institute for International Relations, and with the Institute of Physics. Just a few of the institutions that are directly involved, and Professor Nestor Katisha has already secured funding from FAPESP, the state funding agency. So, Luis, please.
Thank you, Paulo. I'd like to invite Judge Gassia Apkarian to sit, because the idea is to have a dialogue, and basically the idea is how the Armenian community and the USP could work together to transform global order. And I like the motto. You can sit there. Okay. I like the motto, how is in Latin? Scientia Vinci. Okay, that's right. Science wins. So Armenians and science together, impossible to stop them. So that's the plan. The plan is to combine Armenians, and it's not a joke, in fact. I believe Armenian community, you don't have clarity how much powerful you are. Because you are a global community. I was working in a social media campaign. I will give you some details later. And we have 6,500 Armenians from 120 countries working together. That's unique. Of course you have problems, but you're unique. The idea is to combine you with the university who will help us to give a platform that you can use to be together, to get collective actions. But before I introduce Gassia Apkarian, she was, when we were coming in the taxi, she was concerned because she got information about risk for Armenia itself today. So, and that for me is interesting. I said, look, before we start the conversation, tell the audience what you know. Go there, move 2 chairs there.
All right. I do what Luis tells me.
Yes, occasionally. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So I don't know how many of you are aware, but Armenia has been under attack since 2020 by Azerbaijan, and since then, I will talk about it a little bit more extensively when I get up there. But there's this constant fear that Azerbaijan is going to wage war on the Republic of Armenia. And on my drive here, I spoke to one of our staffers that works for the Center for Truth and Justice in Yerevan, because as we speak, in the southern region of the Republic of Armenia, the Azerbaijani military is shooting into villages. So the first thing I said is, I need direct information, who, where, what, testimonies, facts, because that's what our organization focuses on, pure facts and not storytelling, not hearsay. And then I contacted the rest of the group in Washington, D.C. and Los Angeles, and one of them said, oh, I heard they're only shooting in the air. And I was really upset because a nation is being held at the end of a gun barrel in fear on a daily basis, and suddenly members of the diaspora don't see this as absurd. As long as bombs are not falling on top of their heads in the country, then we're willing to accept this abnormal existence, shooting into the air, into the villages. Imagine your life here in Sao Paulo. You know, life goes on, the lights come on, you go to work, your kids go to school, and then suddenly in a neighborhood, you know, there's constant shooting into the courtyard where your kids play. That is not a normal existence. So on a daily basis, this is what we deal with, what we worry about. But the reason Luis and I have been working together is because the work we do is for purposes of trying to prevent. And therefore, everything that was discussed, innovation to make impact, how do we get to prevention? So you need evidence, you need data, and you cannot become so thick-skinned that shooting into villages, putting the fear of life and death is something that's acceptable. The kids in Armenia should grow up to have the same expectations as your kids do and some of the young people do, of what careers they want, where do they want to go to school, what dreams do they have, not whether or not they're going to be able to live another day.
Yes, the idea to inform you about what happened today is to give a sense of urgency. Yes, we are doing academic work, but we understand the world is complicated, and that's why the world needs this project. Last year, there was a 75th anniversary of the Genocide Convention, adopted in 1948, 2 years ago. And it was a shame because at the same time, 75 years later, the advisor on genocide at the UN informed us there were 6 ongoing genocides. One of them, Nagorno-Karabakh. So, what we are trying to do in USP is how to make more efficient the Genocide Convention. Genocide Convention was adopted to protect communities. Before that, national state feel we can do nothing, it's not happening to us. It's a famous story. The German ambassador in Turkey, in the Ottoman Empire, informed the chancellor about the attack against Armenians in 1915. And the German chancellor said, well, it's not our business. Our only aim is to keep the Ottoman Empire in our side in the war. So that was the vision in 1915. In 1948 was a legal change. The Genocide Convention was adopted. People promised never again. However, even now, states have the commitment to prevent genocide. That's their legal obligation. And so what now they are doing is they make enormous effort not to know, to deny, to have the chance not to say, oh, it is a genocide. Because as soon as they recognize the genocide, they had to prevent, and they don't like to do that. So we were thinking how we can do this different. Basically, one of the problems is there is no one monitoring. Lawyers don't focus on the prevention part. And then states adopt their own practices. Example, Australia. I talked to because Armenian community in Australia contacted me with the ambassador in charge of this genocide prevention. And I asked him, what's your standard to prevent? Why are you doing nothing to prevent the Nagorno-Karabakh genocide? And he said, well, to call something genocide or risk of genocide, we need a court deciding first is a genocide. But ambassador, how you can prevent the genocide? See, you have to wait that genocide happen and then a court deciding. It's absurd, will be late by definition. Well, that's our protocol. And the point is, he benefits because no one knows that, no one focuses on that, no one understands that. And the media is not discussing that. So basically, Nestor Katicha, who is there, raise the hand. Okay. He's a professor of physics statistics. And he was insisting for the last year to do something, as Paulo said, to use the physics method to improve the situation of global order. And it took a long time for me to understand exactly what he was aiming to, and now we understand each other, and then we start to work. Basically, we understood Genocide Convention and the law in general is an algorithm defining expected behavior. And it's expressed in words, but we can treat it as an algorithm. And then understand, okay, there are legal algorithms, but also there are other algorithms describing, okay, Germany, even today, or Australia, they don't have interest to prevent genocide. So how can put all these algorithms requesting different behavior in the same system? And that, it was, Nestor had the idea, look, we need to do a big data collection to put all this information together, legal algorithms, but also facts, media, and the standards used by different states to prevent or not to prevent. And we'll put this information in a big databases, and then he will do the magic, using the physics method, including the neural networks, to understand the system, to understand how, not just the system, how each actor behaves. And the idea is to build this platform that will receive information and then could predict what will happen, to show what will happen, to tell us, okay, what could be the best measure to stop this? So this is the aim. How to put this? I have the technicians are gone? Oh my God. Okay, I have something very nice here, but I don't know how to show you. Oh, yes. So the goal is this. We want to launch a project to increase the efficiency of the Genocide Convention with the goal to protect all the victims, not just the Armenians. We want to protect Darfuris, Rohingya, Israelis, and Palestinians, groups like the Tigray in Ethiopia, Imagine, you believe you are not so strong. If you're a Tigray from Ethiopia, who cares about you? No one. There's no Tigray in the world. You're everywhere. So when you compare with the other groups, you see your power. So we need Armenians to protect the Armenians, but also to protect humanity. You have to be our cavalry to fight for civilization. That's what you are. And that's the beauty, combining the knowledge and the expertise and the innovation of neural network and the physics with the Armenians to do a pilot case on Nagorno-Karabakh and start to see what's happening in Armenia too, because it's not just Nagorno-Karabakh. The risk is in Armenia itself, and that's why I started with Gassia describing what's happened today. So the plan is to have this system presenting clearly information, and our aim, I know Nestor say don't overpromise. Okay, we are aiming to. We'll see if we can do it. Nestor, so we'll see if we can do it. The idea is have a platform to present the entire system. Okay, you ask, okay, what is the ambassador of Australia thinking on the risk of genocide? Okay, well, Australian ambassador is thinking, oh, we need to wait for a call. That's ridiculous. So we have people in Australia challenging and defining and showing. So the idea is to give a collective platform that you don't feel isolated. You are working together with us, no Armenians. Fight for civilization. So the final aim of this project is to produce a platform based on information theory formulation of complex systems and artificial intelligence that may improve the efficiency of the normative system created by the Genocide Convention. That is the goal of the project, okay? And Pedro Dallari, who is also there, Pedro Dallari is there, raise the hand, who is the director of the International Relations Institute, is also part of the project because he's helping us to be sure all the legal analysis is correct and asking him what else should improve. So we are able to combine physical understanding of very abstract notions with Pedro's enormous knowledge on international relations, including law, international law, and international practices. And the idea is to combine them to create a platform that can understand the problem and use the method of information theory to present in a clear way to you, then you can use it. That's the plan. And to final this part, I like the Armenian understanding how powerful you are. When President Aliyev tried to got the seat of the COP29 meeting, the meeting on the UN climate change, his aim was to become a global leader. Even, and it's a classic, he was talking about COP29 will be a COP of peace. He was saying that while he was committing a genocide. We saw that, and we said, okay, if he succeeds, if COP29 is a success, Nagorno-Karabakh people are dead. We cannot go back. We cannot even talk about it. So we started a small campaign with a group of Armenians using three hashtags, these hashtags, COP29, Free Armenian Hostages, Stop Greenwash Genocide. And I will not go to details, but let me see, my success was defined by the same, by
right after Azerbaijan was elected
this
as
Aliyev talking.
host country of COP29, we became a target of coordinated, well-orchestrated
We won.
campaign of slander
Science
and
would be-
blackmail. Western fake news media and so-called independent NGOs and some politicians as if we're competing in spreading disinformation and false information about our country. People of Azerbaijan, regardless of their ethnic or religious identity, live in peace and harmony as one family.
So the point is, Aliyev opened the COP29, feeling the failure, and understanding we won. Of course, it's just a battle. We did not go on the war, but we won the battle. And I'd like to show you it's possible. Let me. So, Armenians from 120 countries, here in light blue, country with some people, dark blue, more people. But let me show this, because that is the point. The number of this line is small. The small numbers are the Armenian activists. The other numbers are votes, bought by Azerbaijan. They spend $5 million. We spend 10,000. They spend 5 million, and we won. Because the few Armenians mobilize organizations, mobilize the church, mobilize people like Greta Thunberg, and mobilize media. So the fact that we can work together creates a different situation. So it's not about we were bigger or more powerful. No, we're not, but we won. So that is for me just to share, tell you it's feasible, it's possible. Don't feel discouraged. You are Armenians, so you know you have to be resilient, and you are resilient. And I think this idea to create a platform at the USC connecting Armenians, the governments, NGOs working for peace and justice with the other communities will create a transformation. That's why we are fighting for civilization. And the beginning is just Gassia Apkarian. Because okay, let me see. She's one of you. You were telling about, and many of you, when you talk with her, all you have similar past. All of you have your grandparents escaping from the genocide. Some of you, she born in Aleppo. So some of you born in Aleppo in different. So, and then she went from Aleppo to Lebanon, because Aleppo was in a war with Israel. In those days, Syria was in war with Israel. She left, went to Lebanon, looking for a safe and quiet place. And then she got the war in Lebanon. Then at 16, she went to US, where she finished high school and went to the college, and then law. And after she was a lawyer, she became a criminal defense attorney. But she was Armenian, basically, genetically. So when Armenia became independent from Soviet Union, she went back to Armenia to help President Kocharian, to assist him, whatever she could. So she spent 2 years there. She spent 2 years there. Then she went back to US. She had 2 kids. And he was appointed in 2014 a judge of the Superior Court of California. But she continued being Armenian. So when in 2020, she saw what happened with Azerbaijan, he understood we need to collect evidence of the crimes committed during the war. And therefore, even she was a judge, she invited some lawyers to work with her. They created this Center for Truth and Justice, and they trained volunteers how to collect the evidence, how to record the evidence, how to store the evidence, to be useful. And then she had more than 120 volunteers. She collected the evidence, she stored the evidence. She has now seats in Los Angeles and in Yerevan. And she did her work. And because of that, last year, she was able to present before the International Criminal Court a case explaining how Azerbaijan is today, not just committing a genocide in Nagorno-Karabakh, invading some areas of Armenia, how Azerbaijan has troops in Armenia, and how Azerbaijan is creating conditions to restore the group in some places in Armenia. And she will tell us about that, but the important thing for us at the center to do this project is she's willing to pass to the database we are database we were collecting, all the information she collected. She got thousands of folders and information, including social media issued by Azerbaijan during the war, where they recognized the crimes. They were proud of the crimes. They were showing what we were doing. And then they delete that. But she stored that. The center had all this social media collected and saved. So she would give us all this information. And that's what we are trying to do. We are working with people like Gassia, who have this kind of work, and cooperate each other. And together, we'll do this platform that will save, is what we can do. We help to mobilize the legal effort, the civilization to protect Armenia and the other victims of genocide. So that's the plan, what we are doing. After Nestor and Pedro could give more details if you need. But for me, Gassia, if you don't mind, it would be a great moment to have your thoughts on, explain to them what you did. I think you should explain the case you presented before the SEC, and whatever you want.
All right, whatever I want.
Yeah.
Can I get my slides up? I've prepared a whole bunch. I don't know which part I'm going to be able to use.
Oh my God, there's no one there.
There's no one there?
I will help you. No. They left. They done? Here. Where do you want?
Oh, okay, I see it. Yeah. Okay. First of all, let me take this opportunity to thank USP and faculty and staff and all those who are here today. I'm sorry I don't speak the Portuguese or Spanish, and English is the way it's going to go, and Armenian is another language for me. So thank you, first of all. It's been a pleasure to meet everyone I've met with so far. And if you think physics professors are arrogant, you haven't met judges, okay? Because at the end of the day, what we say is the law, right? But let me go back on this for a little bit. So I have wide experience in Armenia since independence from the Soviet Union, 1992. I actually finished law school, took the bar exam, packed my suitcase, and my parents said, "Where are you going?" I said, "To Armenia." And they said, "Why?" I said, "It's independent. Did you hear?" So it was a dream. I have never lived in Armenia before independence. I am a part of what's known as the diaspora. My grandparents were the ones who left Armenia, Ottoman Turkey, and survived the genocide. So independence meant truly the unbelievable dream coming true. However, on top of that, my legal career made one thing very simple and clear to me. Evidence is what we need. I want to show you my personal story. This is, it says in Armenian and in English and in Russian. This picture was taken of me, my husband, and my daughter the year before Nagorno-Karabakh was bombed for 44 days. We went to Nagorno-Karabakh. For Armenians, it's called Artsakh. For 6,000 years, Armenians have called it Artsakh, and that's what it says. So it says, "Welcome to Artsakh." This picture does not, this is history. This sign is gone. These lands no longer belong to Armenians. There are no Armenians here. Because everything has to do with your personal story, correct? So this is what's known as Dativank. Dativank is a 13th century monastery that has continuously been Armenian, and since 2020 it's been taken over by Azerbaijanis, and Armenian priests are not allowed, and no one is allowed to go there if you're Armenian. So this is my personal story, because everything you see here, 6th century churches with all of their artifacts, cross stones, cemeteries for kings and queens, This is no the Armenian writing on the walls. This is all under Azerbaijan, and there are no Armenians left there. I don't mean some Armenians stayed. I mean there are no Armenians left in Nagorno-Karabakh. I put this picture here because of our smiles. This is a funny picture. My daughter makes fun of me. This is at the football stadium in Artsakh. We went to watch a football game, and when the first goal was won by Artsakh, I started crying. And my daughter made fun of me. Why are you crying? And I said, because these people have fought for thousands of years in order to have the freedom to play football on their own land. Little did I know, within a year, that was going to come to an end. So that's my personal story of why this matters to me. However, what happened in 2020 was, this is the cultural heritage one. I'm not going to do that one. This is what Luis wants me to talk to you about. I'm going to do that in a minute. What happened to me was in 2020, I live in California, and it was during COVID, okay? So I was watching live, the horrific crimes being committed by, this is the president of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, walking on the Artsakh flag. And these are just we have over 1,500 pieces of documents or pieces of social media by Azerbaijan. So I've picked a few for you. Armenia as a country is of no value. It is actually a colony, an outpost run from abroad, a territory. Armenia is not even a colony. It is not even worthy of being a servant. This is common language used by the president of Azerbaijan and his cronies. We believe language is the #1 place where you start monitoring the intent to commit genocide, because words matter. The one thing I say about Aliyev, obviously a dictator, not someone I have any respect for, but I can tell you this, he does not lie. His words have never been a lie. So if you want to decide whether or not there are signs of aggression, attack, war, and ultimately genocide, just listen to his words. If you do not want to die, then get out of Azerbaijani lands. We must and we do wage a more active struggle with Armenia. We have isolated it from all international and regional projects. Their ultimate goal is to turn Armenia completely isolated from the world and therefore conquer it and take it so while the world is not watching. And what is this similar to me as I'm watching this happen? By the way, the really ugly videos I didn't put here because Azerbaijanis were very proud of killing, slaughtering, cutting the necks, mutilating women, children, and executing them on live video. And it was put on Telegram social media. That's what I was watching in 2020 during COVID, absolutely horrified. And what did it make me think of? My ancestors and the genocide of 1915. And the problem with the genocide is we did not collect evidence. Armenians did not collect evidence, and there's a good reason for that. There were 2 million Armenians in Ottoman Turkey, 1.5 million were slaughtered, and the rest barely survived. So it wasn't exactly doable for them, and I thought we cannot make this mistake again. As a judge, I look at evidence. No evidence, no argument, no decision. So, we are driving them, ethnic Armenians, away like dogs. Azerbaijani soldiers drive them away like dogs. That's how they refer to Armenians. We are dogs to them, and vermin and rats. I said that if ethnic Armenians do not leave our lands of their own free will, we will chase them away like dogs, and we are doing that. Now, this language, people think, was only specific to Nagorno-Karabakh. Nagorno-Karabakh has existed continuously indigenous to Armenians, by Armenians, for 6,000 years. And I have a bunch of that, but you can take my word for it. Judges don't lie. We only speak with evidence. However, his words are not about Nagorno-Karabakh. His words are about Armenia proper, the Republic of Armenia. We will continue to expel these liars, ethnic Armenians. They see who is who now. They see that we were teaching them a lesson they will never forget. He's referring to what they did in Nagorno-Karabakh, and he's telling Armenia, did you see what we did in Nagorno-Karabakh? Because you're next. I don't know if this is, it's not going to be allowed. This first one? This one? Is that going to work? Oh. Yes? No? No. Forget it. Okay. And now we're gone. Okay. So the words are here. It says, don't piss us off, behave yourself. If you behave well, then you can live in peace. No, if not, again, commit any provocation against us or make a statement, then we will smash your head regardless of anyone. No one will help you. These are the words of the president of Azerbaijan. The younger Azerbaijani generation has grown up with love for the motherland and hatred for the enemy, specifically referring to Armenians. Aliyev has also referred to ethnic Armenians as barbarians, vandals, who are infected by a virus more dangerous than coronavirus. And then Azerbaijan put this stamp. This is a stamp that Azerbaijan created. The good news is stamps have to be internationally recognized. There's an actual institute of stamps, and they denied recognition of the stamp. And what it shows is Azerbaijan is cleansing the land of Armenians, like we are, in fact, vermin or a virus. And we took this piece of evidence to the UN a couple years ago in order to explain what hate speech really looks like. But a stamp speaks volumes. It is the extermination of Armenians. That is what Azerbaijan aims to do. And here are others. The defense minister of Azerbaijan. Within the next 25 years, there will be no state of Armenia in the South Caucasus. These people have no right to live in this region. I don't know if it can be any clearer what the intent of the Azerbaijani government is: to remove all Armenians from the land. Now, why is the Genocide Convention so instrumental? Armenians have experienced extermination. This is not our first time. And everyone speaks about never again. Folks, it's happening all over the world again and again and again. And our goal is the complete elimination of Armenians. You Nazis already eliminated the Jews in the 30s and the 40s, right? You should understand us. Fascist language is being used as an advantage to a government. These are, by the way, not secrets. So this is the Baku Military Trophy Park. The government of Azerbaijan built this trophy park right after 2020. These are the helmets of dead Armenian soldiers. This park is there for children and families to visit. You know the beautiful parks in Sao Paulo that I visited yesterday? This is what their idea of family time off is, to go to the trophy park. It's not just the helmets of dead Armenian soldiers. It has statues made to look like Armenians. All right? This is what you visit, the mummies, the Armenian mummies that mimic Armenian soldiers dying in the bunkers. This is the trophy park that is still open today. Some of us like to go to Disneyland in California. Trophy Park is where the Azerbaijani population visits. And more of it. This is what they depict Armenians to look like. Armenian soldiers dying. And families go to visit on a nice Sunday afternoon. And they take pictures of these children visiting these trophy parks, and they put them on social media because they're proud of it. And it goes on and on and on. So this is some conversation of how did they create these images, and the person who made these said, I research facts about Armenians in the media. Of course, this is a product of my ideas, no specific persons. And then this is the person who actually created these mummies that are meant to look like Armenians. I want to read this to you. You see the word Zangezur? Okay. Zangezur is a southern district of Armenia. It's the section that I was talking to you about when in the car, Luis and I were coming here. This is where they're shooting. Yerevan, this is not how we spell Yerevan. Zangezur are our historical lands. So they change history. They change facts. Azerbaijan didn't exist as a country before 1918. It is a product of the Soviet Union. Armenia existed for thousands of years, and we just happen to be an older, not country, people. We are one of the oldest nations. I will show you another image. And Yerevan is our historical land. So they change evidence, they change facts, they create lies to feed what they need to feed to justify aggression and wars of aggression. And it says here, our enemy is the Armenian lobby. Some people might think I'm a part of it. I'm not. I don't do political lobbying. I do this. But they fear the diaspora. That's what that means. Because for those of you who are not aware, there are about 12 to 13 Armenians worldwide. 10.5 million exist outside of Armenia. The population of Armenians in Armenia is getting smaller nonstop. Why? Because of what we submitted to the ICC. There is ongoing genocide. The genocide is not the complete annihilation of a people. It is creating conditions for the annihilation of a people. And that's what Azerbaijan did in Nagorno-Karabakh, and they're doing it in Armenia as we speak. Okay, so what I want to do here, I want to talk about the genocide, the case of Nagorno-Karabakh. This picture up here is April in front of the ICC. This woman who's standing next to me that I'm circling, her name is Lala, okay? And the rest of it are CFTJ staff and board members. So we were the first Armenian group, Armenian anything, that actually delivered a communication to the ICC last April, using the case of Nagorno-Karabakh and claiming that there's genocide of Armenia. This woman, Lala, she's a single mother of 2 kids, 2 teenagers. Her sister, Gayane, and I don't have that video and I'm not gonna put it up because it's very gruesome, was one of 4 or 5 women in the Republic of Armenia who were shot, mutilated, slaughtered live on video. That's how she found her sister, on video. And when I say this, her body, when it was found, her fingers were cut off and stuffed in her mouth. Her genitalia had been cut open. Her breasts were cut open. Her eyes had been poked out and they had put stones in them. And on her stomach, they had written the name of the brigade that so proudly had committed this crime. And Lala, so her sister had 4 kids, 2 adults, a 16-year-old and a 10-year-old. Lala was looking for her sister and discovered her on Telegram, and this video was on a loop for 3 days. And her focus was trying to save her nephews and nieces from seeing their mother being mutilated live. And you can see and hear the Azerbaijani soldiers laughing as they're filming. On the left here are Armenian prisoners of war in the prisons of Azerbaijan. And we have multitudes of reports written about the torture that goes on in these prisons. So here's a little bit of the background. So top 10 world's oldest nations, you will see how old Armenia is. Why do I put this here? I've never felt the need to prove to anyone that Armenians have been around forever. The reason I now have the need to do this is because Azerbaijan says, Armenia never existed, our lands belong to them, and they're coming to take and claim them back. So the absurdity of it, and my answer always is, oh, come on, history has this documented. But the danger is what goes on inside Azerbaijan, because Azerbaijan is raising generation after generation with Armenophobia, hatred of Armenians. We have evidence and books and reports of how as young as 1st, 2nd, 3rd graders in Azerbaijan are taught in their school books, you know, who's your enemy? And you get to pick the Armenian picture. And they teach them to dance and burn Armenian flags. So what are the signs? When you're looking for signs of genocide, look at how generations are being educated inside that country that is aiming for it. So the reason I put this up is because, again, this is a 6th century BC Babylonian clay tablet where on it shows Armenia existed. And then the Kingdom of Armenia. So these are just maps. The reason I like to do maps is because it helps you have a perspective of what Armenia looks like. This is Nagorno-Karabakh. This is Armenia proper, post-independence. You see Azerbaijan. South of us is Iran. East of us is Turkey. You see this little area that says also Azerbaijan? It's very strange. Armenia cuts between 2 parts of Azerbaijan. This was done during the Stalin period. Nagorno-Karabakh, Stalin gave to Azerbaijan, and this portion, which is known as Nakhichevan, Stalin gave to Armenia. Okay, we've inherited the horrors of the Soviet Union and the horrors of Stalin because they were very good at divide and conquer ethnic groups. So they would cut off lands and give it to each other to make sure that there was constant strife, and thank you, till today we are suffering the agony of Stalin. So this is a map around 180 BC where you see the map says Artsakh. Artsakh is not a made-up word, it's very indigenous. So this is a timeline. This is in Artsakh, Aramas Monastery, 4th century. Okay, this is just to show you that Armenians are indigenous to Nagorno-Karabakh, and today I'm going to show you pictures of what it looks like. This is a 7th century church, so this is what the church looked like when it was under Armenian rule. Today, the cross is gone. This is actually, well, 1918. It just tells you when. So this is a city, a major city in Nagorno-Karabakh. You see this picture of this church. This church has been demolished and destroyed oh so many times. And this is what it looks like on the left, the beautiful church. And then during the war, they bombed it. After the war, they're turning it into a mosque. That's what it looks like today. Okay? So genocide takes multiple forms. First you lose your people, then you lose their memory, and then you lose traces of them, and then there's full denial. That is what is happening in Nagorno-Karabakh, and that is the future of Armenia unless we prevent it. Okay, these are old pictures, 1988, Karabakh movement, Stalin, and this is Nagorno-Karabakh, Sumgait, 1988. These are pogroms that took place within Azerbaijan. There used to be 500,000 Armenians inside Azerbaijan. After the 1988 pogroms, 500,000 Armenians were forced out of Azerbaijan, and they escaped mostly to Armenia, but they couldn't live in Armenia, and they became a part of the diaspora. This is our story. We escape death, and then we go become a part of the diaspora. And that's why Armenia is getting emptied. Emptying a land of its people is genocide. So this is the story over and over and over again. This is the 1994 ceasefire. So these are some examples of horrific crimes being committed that were filmed. Residents being in Nagorno-Karabakh being tortured and killed. I don't know if I can play these. And then one of the things Azerbaijan is very proud of doing is the more Armenians you kill, the higher prestige you get in Azerbaijan. During the 2020 war, we have testimonial evidence and reports on, depending on how many Armenian heads you have or scalped as evidence, the more money you get paid. This is not stuff that we have made up. What the reason, this is the 2020 war in Nagorno-Karabakh. I don't think I'm going to be able to play any of these, huh? Should we try? Yes? Do you think? These videos? No. No, I can't do them. Okay. White phosphorus being used in Nagorno-Karabakh that destroyed the forests and burned hundreds and hundreds of people. This is all the forests that were burned. They used Hamas and ISIS mercenaries, and some of them were captured. And we actually have testimonies from them of how much Azerbaijan was willing to pay depending on how many Armenians they killed. It translates into dollars of how many Armenians you've killed. So this is the 44-day war. These are all live videos. I've only put stills on them. This man here on the right, the video shows him on the floor, knife against his throat as they cut his throat. These two down here, it's an older man and a young man wrapped in the Armenian flag, and they execute him, all live. And then the Russian peacekeepers came, and then this horrible thing started happening called the blockade of Nagorno-Karabakh. I want to take you there. These are live. This is inside of the Republic of Armenia, not in Nagorno-Karabakh. These are 7 Armenian unarmed men, and they're being executed on video. Here are the women that I told you were horrifically slaughtered live inside of the Republic of Armenia. They have fatigues on because they helped with food. They took food to the fighters and communication. They're not soldiers. So this is Lala. This is her sister, Gayane. Lala had to take in, she was a single mother with 2 kids of her own. She took in Gayane's 2 younger boys as well. She works during the day as a school teacher. She teaches geography. And at night, she works in a casino dealing cards because she now has to care for 4 children. But the work we did empowered her. I'm happy to say she's now going to law school. Because of the work we've done, we took her to the ICC, and then, oh, I'm so upset I can't show you these videos. So then we took her to Washington, D.C. last September. She testified in front of Congress, her story. She wasn't the only one. We took other victims as well, in order for them to tell their truth. Because the truth is with the victims, not with the politicians. It's with the victims. So then the blockade of Nagorno-Karabakh started. And what that meant was, this is a picture of the number of trucks Armenia and France and other countries sent to the border of Nagorno-Karabakh, because Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh were cut off from food, electricity, heat, water, internet, and they were starving. Azerbaijan would not allow any humanitarian aid, and these trucks stood there for months on end as people were starving. So we have testimonies. So we trained people not just in Armenia, but also in Nagorno-Karabakh, because the person taking evidence and testimony has to be very close to the evidence, and they have to trust the person. So the young people, lawyers, law students that we trained in Nagorno-Karabakh were taking testimony in Nagorno-Karabakh as they were also the victim. For example, one day, one of the girls who was taking testimony from someone, she got a phone call while she's recording that her uncle had been shot. So you're taking evidence from a victim, and you are the victim, and you're directly being targeted as well. So this is very difficult work that they've done. It shows no food, hopelessness. This is lines all hours of the night. He has a number on his hand. It's the number 252. He had to stand in line all night because he was number 252 to get a piece of loaf of bread. Just, you know, I've been waiting in the queue for over an hour. I don't want my mother or grandmother to come because their legs hurt and they're getting tired of standing in line. One of the sad things that happened, they did a coupon system. It didn't really help. One of the sad things that happened was the number of deaths of stillborns and pregnant women losing their babies because there was no health care, there was no medicine, no energy, no electricity. By the way, Nagorno-Karabakh gets really cold. It snows there, and there was no heat. As a result, no clean water. And they were using their reservoirs, and this is an image of what happened to the reservoir at the end of the 9 months they were under blockade. They simply ran out of water. And the hospitals did not have medicine or electricity to treat anybody or ambulances to take people from one place to another. Obstetrician gynecologists who worked in Nagorno-Karabakh, they said threefold increase in reproductive loss. This is in a matter of months. Higher perinatal mortality. And then they started arresting people in Nagorno-Karabakh and creating complete falsities, no facts. So they would open up the border to allow, for example, students who had to go to Armenia to go back to their colleges, and then they would arrest them at the border and take them to Azerbaijan, like these boys. And then this is the last phase of Nagorno-Karabakh. These are images right before Armenians completely left, because remember, it's a blockade, they wouldn't let Armenians out. September 2023, Azerbaijan launched a full-scale military attack on Nagorno-Karabakh. The children were in bunkers, bomb shelters. These are the last memories of these children of the land they grew up in. Armenians went to the airport where the Russian troops were to ask for help. Guess what the Russian troops did? Nothing. Nothing. And then the mass exodus happened because Azerbaijan finally opened the connection between Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh. The time it takes to go from Nagorno-Karabakh to Armenia is 45 minutes to 2.5 hours. It took 36 hours. And people died on the road. No food, no water, no medicine. It was complete mass exodus. Within 6 days, that border closed. Not a single Armenian was left behind. And these were the crossings. There was a fuel depot blast. I'm not going to get into that. And they arrested the complete leadership of Nagorno-Karabakh, presidents, Minister of Defense, state officials, anyone and everyone who had been in leadership. They arrested them in Nagorno-Karabakh, took them to prison. 2014, Nagorno-Karabakh. 2023, Nagorno-Karabakh. Not a single Armenian. You can't find a single Armenian. So this is an amazing video that I wanted to play for you, and I guess I can't play it for you. Yeah, it's not letting me. Try it? Okay, what do I do? Permiti? This one? Ah.
A Nobel Prize-nominated philanthropist and 22 other Armenians are facing sham trials in Azerbaijan, where systematic abuse and deteriorating health conditions now threaten their lives. A year and a half after displacing 120,000 Armenians from their homeland, Azerbaijan is starting to prosecute the Armenian prisoners of war it captured. Among them is Ruben Vardanian, a philanthropist who funded schools and scholarships in Armenia. He, like the others, is charged with crimes that date back to the 1980s, though he didn't enter Nagorno-Karabakh in an official capacity until 2022. Azerbaijan accuses Vardanian of bringing 16.8 million small arms into Artsakh. That would be 140 guns for every man, woman, and child who lived there. It's also several times the amount of small arms owned by the entire U.S. military. Needless to say, it's a logistical impossibility and a totally ludicrous claim. Azerbaijan also accuses Vardanian of planning Operation Nemesis II, a plot to assassinate Azerbaijani diplomats abroad. This is a reference to Operation Nemesis, a 1920s campaign by Armenian revolutionaries who targeted perpetrators of the Armenian Genocide. It's clearly political theater intended to inflame tensions. Also, it's totally fictional, as is the claim that Vardanian used the Aurora Humanitarian Initiative, an internationally recognized NGO, to funnel funds to armed forces. But these fake trials are no surprise. Azerbaijan is certifiably authoritarian. It ranks 164 out of 180 countries in the World Press Freedom Index. Hundreds of political prisoners are detained in Azerbaijan. According to Transparency International, Azerbaijan is one of the most corrupt countries on earth. And while Azerbaijan technically allows opposition parties, it's an illusion. One opposition candidate in 2018 even admitted that he voted for Aliyev instead of himself. And this Azerbaijani regime's ill treatment of Armenian prisoners of war is well established. Human Rights Watch has documented numerous instances of Azerbaijani forces torturing Armenian prisoners of war. Former captives reported being beaten, deprived of mattresses and blankets, and given inadequate food and water. And the torture extends beyond physical violence. Armenian detainees have been forced to kiss the Azerbaijani flag, praise President Aliyev, and declare that Karabakh is Azerbaijan.
Karabakh is Azerbaijan, and that's all.
This pattern of maltreatment continues with Azerbaijan's current Armenian detainees. Ruben Vardanian began a hunger strike on February 19th to protest the violation of his legal rights. He's been subjected to prolonged isolation, denied water, forced to stand for many hours at a time, and deprived of sleep. He reports being coerced to sign falsified protocols and interrogation reports. And all of the Armenian detainees have been denied access to case materials and languages they understand. Vardanian was given 21 days to review 422 volumes of documents, all in Azerbaijani. International legal teams have been completely barred from communication or visits, as has international media.
All Armenians are being represented by Azerbaijani lawyers, well-qualified lawyers who represented the political prisoners of Azerbaijan. They were dequalified by Azerbaijani bar or subjected to criminal persecution.
We are trying to consolidate international community also to put more pressure on Azerbaijan for the release of Armenian hostages. We are speaking about hostages now. If before we were trying to qualify the POWs or other captives, but it is clear that they are kept there for political reasons, which means that these people, all of them, are hostages.
The bitter irony with these trials is that Azerbaijan suffered no consequences for the 2020 war, the 9-month starvation blockade, or the 2023 attacks that resulted in the ethnic cleansing of Artsakh. Instead, Azerbaijan got to host COP29, the UN Climate Change Conference. While there was a brief period of international media coverage of Azerbaijan's attacks and the mass exodus of Armenians, comparatively little is known about what life was like for the few who stayed behind. In the whole of Artsakh, that's about 20 people. One of them is Sergei Ogoltsov, a Ukrainian who lived in Artsakh since the 80s. He stayed behind after the mass displacement to write a book.
After the exodus, I lived in Stepanakert for 8 months.
He also took thousands of haunting photos. The pictures of the pets Armenians were forced to leave behind absolutely kill me. One small grace. Sergei says the Azerbaijanis let a couple of the Armenians feed the animals around Stepanakert, but he added that they mocked the Armenians behind their backs.
And they loved Apkarian. He was walking the town with 2 bags, and at certain places he was feeding cats. They saw Karian, they laughed.
Azerbaijanis treated mocking Armenians in Artsakh like a sport.
Allah ba Ermənidir, baba gedir qabağımızda. Ha baba. Sür. Ara incə səsə. Ara monçi. İncə səsə. Ha? İncə səsə. Monçi marsə. Oh, yes. Sür.
Azerbaijani state media launched a propaganda campaign portraying those who stayed behind as beneficiaries of Azerbaijan's supposed benevolence. One claim they repeated endlessly was that these Armenians had been offered Azerbaijani citizenship. To bolster the narrative, Azerbaijan even set up a website to help Armenians apply. Absurdly, the website is available in English, a language very few Artsakh Armenians speak.
The purpose of this portal is to ensure sustainable reintegration of Armenian residents living in the Karabakh region of the Republic of Azerbaijan.
There was just one problem. None of the people left in Nagorno-Karabakh had internet access or cellular service.
To have internet, you should have the SIM card. To buy the SIM card, you should show your passport. I didn't have a Azeri passport.
So no Armenian was truly offered Azerbaijani citizenship, and shortly after taking full control of Artsakh, the topic disappeared from Azerbaijani media. One of the most disturbing parts of Sergei's account was what happened during official visits. When Aliyev would come to gloat or vote for himself in Stepanakert, all the Armenians would be rounded up and held under armed guard, essentially under arrest.
When some big shot from the Azeri authorities was coming to the town, everybody collected and arrested at the same hotel, kept there until the big shot gone.
It wasn't just preventing Armenians from all contact with the outside world or regularly arresting them that made it clear Azerbaijan had no interest in coexisting. Azerbaijan also cleared out Armenian homes and resettled Azerbaijanis in them. Likewise, Armenian businesses were given to Azerbaijanis. The people that took over the Florence Garden restaurant didn't even bother to redecorate it before slapping a new name on it and reopening. The Artsakh situation is far from resolved. Of the many injustices related to it, the most dire are the cases of the 23 Armenians subjected to sham trials in authoritarian Azerbaijan.
Unfortunately, international human rights organizations haven't actively reacted to these crimes, and one of the reasons of increase of the number of those crimes in this region is also due to inadequate reaction by international society.
In a general manner, if we are to describe what Azerbaijan is doing in Artsakh, we can say that after having no Armenians there, they are just now erasing Armenian traces, trying to say that there were no Armenians here. Armenians are not indigenous to these lands, and changing the history of Artsakh completely. And they are acting in a complete permissiveness. There is no any properly working leverage or properly working mechanism of holding Azerbaijan accountable for all these crimes.
All right. So the reason I wanted to show you this video is because the people who did stay behind were mostly less than 20 people who were mentally ill, just simply did not leave. Let's see. So the 23 people that the video talks about are currently still in prison. We have, what I want to actually do is, enough? Okay, any questions? Wrap it up. Wrap it up? No, wrap it up. So 5 minutes. So the one thing I just want to tell you is when we created Center for Truth and Justice, we knew that we needed to collect evidence. We didn't know what would happen to the evidence. Other than the fact that we are seeking to find jurisdiction to have court cases, we now come to you. So we don't just have testimonies, we have over 1,500 and ongoing collection of social media atrocities. We're more than happy to share them with those of you in the Department of Statistics, Physics, Innovation, to not just do something for Armenia, but to actually figure out how we can prevent potentially more going on in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Gassia. Thank you very much. You see the enormous variety of the material that the Center for Truth and Justice collected. They have thousands of documents, and the idea is we'll put all this in a databases, and Ana Paula, I don't know if Ana Paula is here, but Nestor will explain to us a little what he can do with this type of data. Nestor Katice is the professor of physics and statistics in the USP, and he's the one who proposed a year ago to use the method of physics to be able to understand the complex situation in the world and make sense of it. So, can you do it? So he will give us a description of what he can do, what the physics could do with the information we are providing.
Okay, thank you. It's very difficult to speak after what you told us. I have to overcome the knot in my throat. Yeah.
That's why we need you. We need to do every science now.
Yeah. Paulo was saying that physicists are arrogant, and you said that judges are more because what you say is law, but not the laws of nature. That's up to us. Okay? I'm going to tell you, Luis always refers this to as the magic. And I'm not going to explain the magic. Tomorrow, we're going to have another meeting here in the International Relations Institute, where we're going to discuss in more detail. So whoever is interested in seeing these things in a better magnification, looking at the details of what we're going to do, is welcome tomorrow at 2 o'clock in Erie. Okay. So I'm going to show you quickly a few examples of previous magic, in the words of Luis, that is, examples of systems where we have applied information theory and statistical mechanics in order to understand certain aspects of societies. This is the simplest society that we have studied with Felipe Alves. This is a neural network. Neural networks, for those of you who are not familiar, neural networks, there is a vast zoo of neural networks, and at the high level of complexity, you have ChatGPT and all those that you are aware that are quite famous now, but there are simpler things, and on some of those you can actually do some analytical work and theoretical work. So you see, last Monday was the first time I spoke to a judge. Yeah, although I had so it's an interesting experience for me. So we did in a few years ago, we did a project in which we were looking at. I'm going to show you really quickly. I have to explain the context and then show you the results we get, so that you start believing that we can do something about it. This, she spoke of a really complex problem. I'm going to tell you very simple applications that we have done in the past that can be useful now. So we're going to look at the appellate courts of the US. These are panels with 3 judges, and these had been appointed by either a Democratic president or a Republican president. And so suppose here, there's no pointer here. Capital RDD is a panel with a judge. I'm looking at the voting patterns of a judge who was appointed by a Republican president when in a panel with other 2 Democratic appointed judges. So we have 6 types of judges: a Republican with 2 Republicans, a Republican with a Republican and a Democrat, etc. Judges have opinions about the issues, and they have confidence levels. This is a dynamical variable that can change in the exchange of information. They have confidence level about the other participants of the panel. They are looking at 14 areas of the law, which goes like affirmative action, NEPA, 11th Amendment. Don't ask me, I'm not a lawyer. Okay, obscenity, Title VII, desegregation, FCC, etc., commercials. And we have data. So this is something important. We have data that was collected in this book, presented. It's a book by Cass Sunstein and Associates, which is called Are Judges Political? And they gather data from several years and from several appeal courts in the US. So this is the thing that you can say, why are we going to do physics on this? Why are we going to use information theory? That's because we can. Information theory is about what you can say in a systematic manner about anything for which you have information. Maybe incomplete information, you need probability theory. So this is a mathematical approach, and this is what we're going to do. Yeah. Now I was told under the threat of violence, not to use any equations. But let me tell you something. A neural network, when you look at ChatGPT, they say, oh, it has 80 billion parameters. If I'm here and I have 3 parameters, I can tell you, go in this direction, in that direction, and this direction. I can locate this point with respect to that. If you have 80 billions, you need a little bit more complicated space, but it's still a point, okay? So we can say that, yes? No, okay, I'm going to be shot after this. The thing is that the judges have something in common, which is this black vector, which is the law. And then they have the red or blue components, which are ideological. And then they have a green random composition. And these have lengths. These alphas that you see there tells you how important is the law, how important is the ideological party contribution, how important is the random thing. Okay. Now, this is a picture that it's much easier to understand than the equations. He's having fun, at least somebody. What I'm going to show you, it's the result of the theoretical approach in looking at the alignment. When you say alignment in words, what I mean for people is that they think alike. When I look at neural networks, it's the alignment between the vectors that define the actual networks. And if you have an alignment, so we put these judges to discuss and to vote on the issues, and we gather information about that. And at the end, we can assess whether the result is similar or not to what the judges in actual life do. And if you see over there on your right, the two, at the bottom, you see the empirical data. This is, the color represents the alignment between a certain pair of judges. And on the picture above it is a very similar picture for a certain condition under which the judges, the neural networks operate. So you see, we can say that we can infer the amount, how much they're taking into account the law, how much, we can measure that, how much they are taking into account ideology and things like that. So we can measure from the data, we can measure things and say, this judge is being ideological. He's thinking not so much about the law, but more about the party lines. So we are able to do that. Okay, so we have some lessons. Second problem, this is you want me to go, to leave? Yes? Yeah, these are the lessons that we learned about the lessons. The agents, in order to look like the real data, they have to be courteous to each other. They have to trust the other. The information, they exchange information, and the agents do trust the other agents. So a judge is trusting another judge and is quite sure about this trust. Otherwise, the neural networks wouldn't look like the data that they gather. There is a sizable contribution from the common law vector. So judges really follow the law up to a point, okay? But there is also a sizable contribution to the party bias. So the Democrat judges do act differently, okay? We can look this across time. We can look if we look at the data, we can say how things have changed. We can do a lot of things with that. I don't have time to do that. Yeah, okay. So the thing is that you should come tomorrow. So let's say we have things on political science, on discrimination. So we have several problems working with neural networks. And now we're going to do international juridical order, which Paulo and Luis have spoken, and using techniques from previous models to obtain an idea of what is called the map or phase diagram of the problem. And we're going to look at a focal problem, which is genocide. And the idea is that we're going to use all these techniques and information to advance in the creation of a platform to simulate scenarios to assess risk of transitioning into a genocide phase. So I'm sure that if you understood before this, you understood. If you didn't, you don't. Tomorrow I'll give more details, okay? Thank you. One more thing. I was not supposed to talk today, but he told me.
No, but it's great.
But he said, no equations, and I don't know how to do that. So I'm sorry for...
No. I think it was a great presentation because it shows how we talk in different language and different methods. For him, when he showed an equation, oh, it's crystal clear. I have no idea what he's saying. And when I explain something to him, he doesn't understand what I'm saying. And Gassia is presenting evidence and stories in different way. And you have TikTok, when it's a different language. So I think the challenge for us is to understand what each of us is doing and start to present ideas in different languages. Because some of you will understand equations, some will understand videos, some will understand evidence, and some will understand other things. So, but basically, I think what Nestor showed is there is a scientific method to put information together into reach conclusions. And I think that will help a lot to make serious the never again promise. And we are very thankful that Gassia took the leadership years ago to build this Center for Truth and Justice, showing us the evidence of what is happening. And we're very helpful, we're very thankful for Paulo to organizing the USP to receive us and to start this complex dialogue when we are talking in different languages and start to understand each other. And I believe this type of efforts is really the only meaningful effort for the future. Solutions will not come from presidents. They have no time, they have no space. We have to do it. And that's why I am very glad for this first meeting, presenting the project, presenting the complexity, presenting the ideas, what we are trying to develop. I don't know if some of you want to make any comment or any question, because we have 10 minutes more. We finish at 6. So, any of you want comments or questions? As Nestor said, tomorrow on Friday, we'll do 2 small workshops to inviting the students and professors from USP to join us to see how we can work together. That's the plan. Tomorrow and Friday is at 3 in the International Relations Institute. Okay? Any of you have comments or questions or something to add? Gassia, you like to make comments on the equations?
I love equations.
Yeah.
I believe in science and I believe in math. I am not in the world of math and science, but I am hoping science is going to help put the insanity of humans on a better track.
So it's a way to build a tool. It's not a solution if you don't use the tool. And it's not going to be the final tool, but it's...
No, I think the tool will provide us a platform to have a collective action. And that is the biggest difficulty, how individuals who are not members of the government can have collective actions, and that the tool will do. And science, how is scientiabensis? How you say it? Ciencia. Ciencia Winkies. Ciencia Winkies, okay? Ciencia Winkies, I think is a great motto for us. So Paulo will close.
I would like to make a comment for this. First, I would like to thank Gassia very much. This really made my stomach ache, but we have to deal with it. I'd like to thank Luis, obviously, for being so inspirational and for bringing us together, and Nestor for making the comments. Maybe one thing that I would like to say, I love this part of a movie, Apollo 13, when, wait a minute, was his name Steve Harris? The character who was playing the NASA, Gene Kranz, you know, he says to a bunch of engineers who are all screaming and making all sorts of different comments about the situation in Apollo 13, and he says, let's work the problem, people. Let's not make things worse by guessing. And I think that what we're trying to do is finally work the problem. So far, a lot of us have just been guessing. Working the problem is something that we can do. Again, as Luis says, this is not going to come from presidents, it's not going to come from politicians, it will come from universities. We have to step up and work the problem. So today was an invitation. This is, something which is in its infancy. There's a lot of work to do. The challenge is huge, but if we work the problem, maybe we will make some progress.